Hello and welcome to my fairy tale channel. My name is Jadwiga, and today I'm going to tell you the story of Snow White, one of the most beautiful stories by the Grimm Brothers. But they did not write them, they just collected the stories and wrote them down and sometimes cleaned them a bit or modified them a little bit so that they were adjustable for children. But they they are pretty unique all over the world for their famous work of collecting these wonderful stories. So one day, on a beautiful winter day when the snow was outside, a queen was sitting by the open window doing some sewing work. And it happened that she stitched her finger and 3 drops of blood fell into the snow. And when she saw these 3 red dots on the white snow, she thought, oh, I wish that the child I have in my belly already, that this child will be as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the frame of this ebony window. So after a couple of months, she gave birth to a little girl, and this girl was as white as snow, her skin, as red as blood, her cheeks and her lips, and as black as ebony, her hair. And so she was called Snow White. But unfortunately, shortly after the queen gave birth to that little girl, she passed away, and after a couple of months, the king got remarried again. And he chose a wife who was a very, very beautiful wife. And the problem was that her beauty was the only thing she was interested in. So she had a mirror, and this mirror had to tell her the truth. It could not lie. And so she trusted what the mirror said. And oftentimes she stepped to that mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And then the mirror would answer, "Your Majesty is the fairest here." And then she was happy and satisfied and, well, went on with her, whatever she did. But Snow White, as she was growing up, she became more and more beautiful. And since she was nice and friendly and compassionate to everyone, she was loved by everyone. And the queen, she saw this little girl becoming more and more beautiful, and that made her angry. And she thought of getting rid of her somehow, especially since one day when she asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror said, "Your Majesty is the fairest here, but Snow White's beauty shines 1,000 times more clear." Oh, and that made her so angry, so upset that she thought she has to get rid of that girl. So she called the hunter and said, "Take that girl, bring her into the forest and kill her and bring me her heart and her liver so that I can see that you really killed her." The hunter took Snow White into the forest. But there the girl said, "Oh, please, please, dear hunter, let me live. I promise I will run away as far as I can and never, ever return back to that castle." Well, the hunter thought, if you run away, the wild animals will eat you anyway. But he was happy that he did not have to kill the girl himself. So he let her run and instead shot a young deer, took the heart and the liver and brought it to the queen. The queen was happy. She took these organs, boiled them in water, and ate them because she thought she would eat Snow White's beauty with her organs. Snow White, she ran as fast as she could. And yes, the wild animals saw her, but did not want to kill her. They just let her pass. And when the night came, Snow White was completely exhausted. Her beautiful dress was like rags, and she was tired, she was exhausted, she was hungry. And then there was a little house. And when she entered, she saw a table with a white tablecloth, and on that table stood 7 little plates and 7 little cups and 7 little knives and forks and everything times 7. And there was something to drink in the cups and something to eat on the plates. But Snow White thought it would not be fair to eat all of one plate and to drink all of one cup. So she took a little bit of each plate, of each cup, of each piece of bread that lay around. And then she was so tired, she looked around, and along the wall, she found 7 little beds. She lay down in the first one. Oh, that was too short. And the second one was too narrow. And the third one didn't fit, and the fourth, until the 7th bed was quite right for her. There she lay down and immediately fell sound asleep. Shortly after that, the owners of that little cabin returned back home, and these were 7 dwarfs. During daytimes, they worked as miners in the mountain, and now they returned back home hungry, and they wanted to eat. When the first one said, "Hey, who has eaten from my plate?" And the second son said, "And who has drank from my cup? And who has used my knife? And who has eaten from my bread?" So all the 7 of them, they realized that somebody had been at their deck. And one of the dwarfs saw his bed and said, "Who laid in my bed?" And the second dwarf said, "And in mine." And the third, "And in mine, and in mine, and in mine." And eventually the 7th dwarf saw Snow White lying in his bed. But she was so beautiful and so sound asleep that they decided not to wake her up. And the dwarf in whose bed she was lying, he spent 1 hour in each of the beds of his fellows because he did not want to disturb one of them for the whole night. The next morning, the dwarfs woke up and Snow White woke up. And the dwarfs came around and said, "Who are you? Where do you come from? How did you get here?" And Snow White told them her story. Now the dwarf said, "Well, if you want to keep our household, if you want to do our laundry and the sewing stuff and clean the house and take care for the food, then you may stay here with us." And Snow White was more than happy and agreed. But the dwarfs warned her and said, "Be careful. Your stepmother tried to kill you, and she won't give up. Very soon she will find out that you're still alive, and she will try it again, so be careful." And Snow White promised. Meanwhile, the queen stood at her mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror said, "Your Majesty is the fairest here. But Snow White, who lives over the 7 mountains with the 7 dwarfs, her beauty shines 1,000 times more clear." Now she knew that the hunter had betrayed her, and she also knew that Snow White was still alive. So she dressed like a saleswoman, and nobody would have recognized her as the queen. She looked completely different, and she took a basket and walked over the 7 mountains to the little cabin of the dwarfs and Snow White. And when she had reached it, she called out, "Fine goods, nice goods, very cheap, come and look, so fine." And Snow White stepped out, saw all this beautiful stuff in the basket of the queen, that her eyes started shining. And the old woman pulled out a pair of laces, and these were very beautiful. And she said, "Do you like them?" "Oh, yes," Snow White liked them. And the queen said, "Well, come on, I just bring them into your bodies so you can see how nice they are." And they went inside, and the queen put these laces into her bodice on the back, and she pulled them so tight that Snow White couldn't breathe anymore, and she fell down like that. Now the queen headed home, and when the dwarfs came, they saw Snow White lying like dead on the floor, and they were upset, and they looked what happened to her until they turned her around, and there they saw these tight laces, cut them, and whew, Snow White started breathing and came back to life. She told them what had happened, and the dwarf said, "We warned you. You may not let anybody into the house. This was your stepmother for sure. We're sure she tried to kill you again, so be careful and let nobody into the house." And Snow White promised. The dwarfs went to work, and the queen stood in front of her mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror said, "Your Majesty is the fairest here. But Snow White, who lives over the 7 mountains with the 7 dwarfs, her beauty shines 1,000 times more clear." So the queen knew her plan had failed. And again, she dressed like another woman, took a basket, walked over the 7 mountains, and once she had reached the house, she called out, "Fine goods, nice goods, come and see, very cheap, so beautiful stuff. You have to see that." And Snow White opened the door and said, "Sorry, I'm not allowed to let anybody in. The dwarfs have forbidden that." "Oh," said the old woman, "you don't have to let me in. You can just open the window and we can do our deal there." And she showed Snow White a comb, a beautiful comb, so nicely made. And Snow White liked it. She could see that. So she said, "Come here. I put it into your hair." And the moment the comb touched Snow White's hair, she fell down like that because it was poisoned. The comb was poisoned. The queen headed home. The dwarfs returned at night, saw Snow White lying like that, and again started to look what had happened. And eventually they found that comb, no, on the side. They found that comb, and when they took it off, Snow White regained life and was back again. Now she told them what had happened, and the dwarf said, "Oh, we warned you. Please, please be careful. This was your stepmother, and she won't give up until she has killed you. So be careful, please." And Snow White agreed and promised to be very, very careful. Now, the dwarfs went to work next day. The queen in her castle asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And again the mirror said, "Your Majesty is the fairest here. But Snow White, who lives over the 7 mountains with the 7 dwarfs, her beauty shines 1,000 times more clear." Again, her plan had failed. And now she knew she had only one more chance. And now she dressed like a farmer's wife, and she prepared an apple. She prepared an apple with poison, but only one half. And then she took a basket full of apples, went over the 7 mountains, and again, when she had reached Snow White's house, she called out, "Oh, nice apples, juicy apples, yummy apples, come, you have to try them." And Snow White opened the window and said, "Sorry, I'm not allowed to make any deal with you. Sorry. No, the dwarfs have forbidden that, and I won't do anything." "Oh," said the queen, "but you can try an apple, can't you?" And when she realized that Snow White was hesitating, she said, "Oh, you think it might be poisoned? Come here." So she broke apart this apple into 2 parts. She herself took the clean, unpoisoned half, ate it, so Snow White could see this was really a good apple, and she handed the other part over to Snow White, and she ate it, and the first bit stuck in her throat, and she fell down dead. This time, when the dwarfs came home and they found Snow White, they looked everywhere, but there was nothing in her hair. There were no laces. They couldn't find anything that might have killed her. So they sat around her for 3 days, mourning and creeping. But after 3 days, she was still as beautiful as always. And they said, "We cannot bury her. We cannot bring her under the earth. That doesn't work. She's still so beautiful." So they took a coffin from glass, put Snow White into that glass coffin, and brought it up on the mountain where one of them always was sitting beside it. And surprisingly, Snow White remained as beautiful as ever. Her body did not start to decompose. And after some time, maybe days or weeks or months, we don't know, it happened that a prince came along, saw this beautiful girl lying in the coffin, and fell in love with her, even though she was dead. But he went to the dwarfs and said, "Tell me your price. No matter how much you want for her, no matter if it costs me all my money, all my gold, everything I have to buy this coffin with Snow White." But the dwarfs shook their heads and said, "We don't sell Snow White. Never, ever, no way." And then the prince said, "Well, if you don't sell her, give her to me as a gift, because I cannot live without her. I need her. I need to look at her. I'm so in love, and if I can't have her, I'm not able to live any longer." Well, that touched the dwarfs' hearts. And they said, "Well, take her with you." And the prince called his servants, and the servants carried that coffin on their shoulders and carried it downhill. But then it happened that one of them stumbled over a root, and with this vibration, the poisoned piece of apple that still stuck in Snow White's throat came out. She woke up. She opened that coffin, looked around, and said, "What's going on here?" And the prince, of course, more than happy that she was alive, he kneeled down and told her what had happened and asked her to marry him. And what do you think? She agreed, of course. Now, the queen herself was invited to that wedding. And she had asked her mirror before and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror said, "Your Majesty is the fairest here, but the new queen, her beauty shines 1,000 times more clear." Now she was curious. She dressed up and walked over to the wedding. And when she came in, she saw Snow White and immediately knew that even the poisoned apple had not done his job. So now people brought a pair of iron shoes that had been heated up in the fire, and they brought them to her. She had to slip into these shoes and walk and dance in these hot, glowing shoes until she fell down dead. Yeah, what do you think? So what really is appears first is the number seven. There are so many times the number seven is mentioned, and well, when we think where the number seven occurs in our lives, of course, 7 days a week, and the seven characters, the seven moods, the seven chakras, the seven world miracles, the seven, how are they in English? Sins, deadly sins, dead sins, something like that. So this is all where the number seven occurs. And in tarot, the number seven is the chariot. And the chariot means a new start, a new beginning. Taking the steering in your own hands, and you decide where you go and what you want to do. So this is an act of self-empowerment and of self-decision. And this is what happens to Snow White. Because I bet the fairy tale does not say that, but I think the queen wants to kill her when she's maybe 12 or 13 years old. This is when the puberty starts, when the girls start to bleed. And this is a time when they they isolate a bit and they are aware there's something happening with their body, but they cannot really understand it, so they pull back. And this is the same when you remember Rapunzel. She's isolated in that tower, or the Sleeping Beauty. She sleeps behind these huge rose hedges. And Snow White, well, she is still awake, but we can see she's a bit, maybe not stupid, but naive, because she always trusts these foreign women. And after she had made that experience once, you should think that she became aware and suspicious if somebody wants to give her something. But no, no, she she's just naive and like a little child. So this period of sleeping probably is needed to ripen her, to become adult. This is the time she needs to, yeah, to grow up, to really grow up. And just let me see, there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, yes, the beauty craze. This queen is so occupied with her beauty. This is the only and most important thing for her. And we can easily see that she identifies with her beauty, with her body. This would be natural for a little girl like Snow White, because she just wakes up and realizes, oh, there are boys, and how do they look at me? I'm interested in them, so I want to be beautiful. And young people at puberty, or maybe even longer, for them, it's very important how they look like. And they spend a lot of time be in front of the mirror. I know that. I remember my own age. I remember my daughters and my granddaughters. So this is natural. But a grown-up woman like the queen, she should have grown up inside and realizing that this outer beauty, she cannot keep it forever. This fades. Our bodies become older, and well, there might be another kind of beauty. So the beauty that shines from inside out. But the outside, we cannot restore. We cannot keep it as it has been in our most beautiful times. And this queen is, well, she's not grown up. She's not a grown-up adult woman. In her heart, she is still the little girl. I want to be the most beautiful of the world. And she has not understood that this is not possible. Well, I hope that we all, as we grow older, are able to send our beauty by our hearts and don't need to put all kinds of stuff into our faces and on our bodies and do some surgeries to lift them and what else is possible. So, yeah, wish you a wonderful day. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.